started, just to remind you that Dr. Saunders is a medical doctor, but he is not your doctor. So we just ask that you discuss any medical things we talk about today with your provider before you implement them, okay? So we do record all of these. I'm actually live on YouTube right now, just so that you're aware. So if you missed something, feel free to go back and watch that. I'm going to post the link to this episode so that you can get connected with our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. That way you're always notified whenever we go live or add anything, okay?
And feel free to go back and watch all 300 or 299 of the other ones.
Well, now it's 300. We got 300 up and going. So,
Oh,
yep.
okay.
All right. Let's see. Oh, I thought I lost my
Great.
chat button.
Um, let's see. D David said he's been enjoying these webinars for years.
Yeah, for years from Colombia.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's so awesome.
Oh, Denise is back. Okay. Oh, wonderful. All right. So Lynn is here, Kansas. Love
By
it.
the way, David, I'm going to Ecuador today.
Are you leaving today? Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Joe Barton has a wedding. His son is getting married. I don't know if that's public information or not.
Yeah.
So the wedding's going to be in Ecuador. So Dr. Saunders is going to be part of the wedding.
All right. Heather says, is this for Memorial Wellness Center? Bari 201.
I don't think so. You're at
Uh,
Barton Publishing and Barton Nutrition with Dr. Scott Saunders.
Maybe clicked on the wrong link from an email.
But you're welcome here. Stick around. We're going to talk about carbs today. Everybody has questions about carbs, right?
Yes, carbs, carbs, carbs. Okay, let's dig into some of this. First of all, what are carbs? I hear starchy carbs, simple carbs, fibrous carbs. What in the world? What do we need to know about this, Dr. Saunders?
Okay. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. The way they named it was because it had a carbon, and hydrate is water. So you have water, a carbon with water, and that's a carbohydrate. And when you put a whole bunch of carbons together, and you have like all the hydrogen and oxygen molecules attached to them, then they make up uh, a lot of the structure of plants is all carbohydrate. If you've ever had cardboard boxes, you order something from Amazon and it comes in a cardboard box. What is that cardboard? It's a carbohydrate. That's what it is. That's what it's made of. It's a carbon with some oxygen and hydrogens attached to them. And those are linked together to make chains. And then those are linked together. And then it makes sheets, and it makes a three-dimensional structure. So carbohydrates are just one of the things like, plastic and metal and whatever else we use to like build and stuff like that. It's the structure on one hand, but on the other hand, there's another part to that, and that is those bonds are not at their lowest energy point. So it's got a lot of energy in there. This carbohydrate has a lot of energy. So if you take something like cardboard and you put a match to it and get it started, it will keep burning. In fact, that's how I start my fires in my fireplace. I put cardboard underneath and then I stack wood on top. And the cardboard just burns so well. And then the wood, what's the wood made of? Carbohydrates. That's the energy of it. And so the way they figure out how much energy something has is they put it into a calorimeter. It's a box. And this box measures exactly what any temperature changes in there. So they put it in the box and they light it on fire and go, and then they say, okay, how many calories were created from burning that thing, whatever it is. So carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram. So 1 gram of sugar, 1 gram of cardboard has 4 calories to it. Well, why don't we eat cardboard? It's because we can't digest it. So you have other types of animals and plants and fungus that can digest it, and they take it and they use it. So you ever wonder, like, if you ever been wandering through a forest and you have this fallen tree that's probably been there for years, and it's like breaking apart and just falling apart. This wood has been rotting. And what is rotting? Well, it's a fungus eating, taking that carbohydrate and making it into energy and using it and growing on it. And so that's what a fungus will do, for example. And that's why the wood rots in your house if it gets wet, because the fungus starts growing in it and going, and it goes, oh boy, this is good energy for me. We can't use it. So if you eat if you eat those kind of carbohydrates, they go right through you. We call it fiber, right? So if you eat wood chips, you're going to get, it's just fiber. It'll go right through you, come out the other end undigested. Except some of the bacteria will digest some of that fiber, by the way. So that's all carbohydrate. And if you can't digest it, if you can't make it into energy, then it's not a source of energy for you. But we do have a lot of carbohydrates that are a source of energy. Well, we call them sugars and starches. And there's a lot of different kinds of sugars that we use that are usually all broken down into one thing, and that's glucose. Glucose is our primary sugar. That's what we like to use for energy. That's what our mitochondria are good at using. They could use fructose really easily. I'm sorry, glucose really easily. Fructose, on the other hand, is also a type of sugar. It's super sweet. It's a lot sweeter than glucose, twice as sweet as glucose. And so that's why they make high fructose corn syrup. Corn syrup is glucose, but they want to convert that glucose into fructose, and they do that chemically, so it's much sweeter. And with that higher sweetness, then the idea is they could use less of it, instead of using just the glucose, the regular corn syrup, for example. The problem with fructose is it's not glucose. We can't use it for energy directly. It has to be converted into, it's used kind of like a fat, the way fat is. So people who eat a lot of fructose is a sugar, right? But it causes fatty liver disease. And alcohol is a sugar that causes fatty liver disease. These will build up in the liver, and the liver makes them into fat, and you're just getting more fat. You're building up a whole bunch of fat in the liver. And if you're not using it, if you're not fasting, if you're not exercising a lot, if you're not using up a lot of energy, if you never use up all your glucose in your body, then the fat just stays there in your liver, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And eventually, some people get cirrhosis of the liver, their liver's dying, and the liver can no longer keep up with the detox stuff that it has to do normally for the body. And so that's liver failure from just getting too much fructose or alcohol. Alcohol is another one that'll do that. Alcohol is another reason, though. It's also quite toxic to the liver. But then again, fructose in high amounts is also quite toxic to the liver, and that's why you get fatty liver from that. So those are different types of carbohydrates that we eat. There are other kinds of sugar alcohols that people really like, that are sorbitol, for example, and allitol. There's the OL on the end means they're alcohol groups. And they're sweet, also like sugar. But some of those sugar alcohols, we can't digest. So if you took a bunch of sorbitol, it would be like, it would go through you, and it would act like a laxative, and cause you to get diarrhea even. So, and many people have done that, but that's also could be used as a laxative specifically. And that's a different kind of carbohydrate. So when we're talking carbs, when you're saying, I'm on a low carb diet, what does that mean? it means low energy diet. The carbohydrates that are used for energy. And that would be glucose, fructose, lactose, um, and sucrose. Sucrose is actually a glucose and a fructose put together. And then if you talk about honey, for example, honey is a glucose and a fructose put together. Or actually, they were put together. They got separated. So the honey is a syrup that has glucose and fructose separately swimming around. And agave nectar, very similar. Agave nectar is very high in fructose. So all of these are sugars, right? And they taste sweet and they're good, and they're very high energy. They have a lot of quick energy. That's what carbohydrates are good for, quick energy. Then there's starches, and the starches are all of the rice and cereals and corn and beans and peas and uh,
Potatoes.
potatoes. Yeah, all that's all those starches. They're not really sweet. They don't taste sweet, but they have a lot of glucose because we can digest them. So we can take starches and break off the glucose. They're long chains of glucose, and we just break them off, boom, 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 one at a time, and take all those. And it's just sugar. It's just like eating corn syrup, essentially, after it's broken down. But it's not sweet when we eat it, and then it gets broken down into sugar, and then we use it for energy, and it's a good, quick energy. So what's wrong with carbohydrates then? Why does everybody say, well, you need to get off carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are bad for you. Carbohydrates are not bad for you. Carbohydrates are very good for you. Here's the problem is that we eat them continually. If we would like stop eating them once in a while, then we would allow our bodies to use up the glycogen, to use up the extra stored sugar so that we could start burning fat for energy. So our bodies are so much better when we go from sugar burning to fat burning, and then go back to sugar burning, and then go back to fat burning. The problem is that people like sweets so much, and they're eating carbohydrates continually. So drinking sodas, that's a lot of sugar. It's like 6 teaspoons of sugar in just one soda. And if you go on like the starches that we eat from potatoes, rice is milled rice, and it's white rice. So all of the bran and germ are taken out, and all you have is just the good starchy stuff. Flour, white flour, same thing. The wheat, all of the bran and germ is taken out, and you just have the good starchy, the nice white bread. Well, part of the problem with that is continually eating that in high amounts, then you just have a constant sugar load. And there's no time when the body can get rid of that sugar and start using fat. So people ask, why am I getting fat? I'm only eating carbohydrates. Well, after you've filled up all of your cells with these carbohydrates, this sugar, then the body says, well, we'll have to make that into fat. So the body literally takes that sugar and makes it into fat and stores it as fat. So people say, how can I possibly getting fat? I'm on a low-fat diet. I'm not eating any fat. It's because that sugar can be converted to fat. So why do we recommend a low-carb diet for people with diabetes? Because their cells are filled up to the brim with sugar. And so they need to use up that sugar. So we say, stop eating sugar. Go ahead and eat fat. You're not, and start training your body to burn fat. That's okay. That's a good thing. For some people, it's been years since their bodies burned fat. And if that's the case, it can take a long time for them to convert into fat burning metabolism. It took marathon runners who are carbo loading all the time about 9 days of fasting and eating fat. They were actually on a carbohydrate. They weren't totally fasting. They were on a low carb, high fat diet. It took them 9 days to get into a fat burning metabolism. Now you can speed that up by fasting. If you're fasting, it takes about 2 days to use up all the carbs and then start burning fat. So if you just did a 3-day fast, that would put you into fat burning mode. And that's where you're training your metabolism to burn fat again so that it can do that. Otherwise, you're just going to get fatter and fatter and fatter. And you can't use the fat, so you just get bigger and bigger because your body is so filled with carbohydrates that the carbs are being used all the time. So what about those other carbohydrates that you're on a low carbohydrate diet and there's that low carbohydrate vegan diet. It's like, wait a minute, you can't have a low carbohydrate vegan diet because everything is carbs, right? The whole broccoli is just made of pure carbohydrates. So what it is you subtract all of the carbohydrates that we don't digest. So if there's cellulose in there, we just subtract that. It's called fiber. So there's all those different kinds of fiber. And so it'll tell you when you look up what is the carbohydrate content, it'll say, well, total carbs, 16. Carbs from fiber, 10. And then you subtract that and you say, oh, there's only 6 in a serving of broccoli, for example. So the carbs that count are the ones that you could use for energy. The ones that we can't digest, that aren't used for energy, that are fiber, we don't count those. You just let those go because they're going to go down into your large intestine and your bacteria are going to use them to make what are called short chain fatty acids, which are going to help your intestines to function better and help you to prevent you from becoming depressed. And that's actually a thing.
Well, and someone had even asked, what was the question? Something about, oh yeah, was there a supplement that can help with anxiety? And that might be another topic that we do for another day, but the gut health is definitely related to some of that as well. So, what do you recommend for someone who may be looking for some help there?
Yeah, getting those short chain fatty acids is one way, but also ketones. When you're making ketones, it will calm the brain. A lot of the things that I use for anxiety are very different from what you'd expect. So something like progesterone, you can get progesterone over the counter. You can get a cream, and progesterone helps the brain to regulate those neurotransmitters so that you don't get the excessive amounts of stimulating neurotransmitters to cause anxiety, and it allows you to have that calming effect. So progesterone helps. Ketones help. Will actually relieve anxiety just going into ketosis. So if you were to get off carbs and allow your body to use fat for energy, then you'd be making ketones. Because whenever you burn fat, you're making ketones. And those ketones are helpful for your brain too. So yeah, that's something you can do. Aside from that, there are other supplements that people use like kava kava and lemon balm, and magnesium can be helpful.
I think ashwagandha is in our Healthy Heart
Right. Ashwagandha
product.
is.
I hear a lot of people that use things like that, or um, oh, I can't think. There's a lot of supplements that I hear about that people like. Here's a question here from Allison that says, my husband's PSA score. What is a PSA score?
Prostate specific antigen.
Okay. It went up from 1.99 to 4.56 in 6 months. What does this mean? And is there a way to get it back down nutritionally?
Okay. So the idea, the concern with the prostate specific antigen, the PSA going up that fast and that far, if it goes over 4, then that's considered that you should look for to see if there's cancer or not. I don't usually do that if it just goes up to 4 kind of thing, because if you have something else, prostatitis, inflammation of the prostate or something like that, it will also make the PSA go up. So the PSA goes up for other reasons besides cancer, but everybody worries. Everybody thinks of the PSA as a cancer screening tool. It's not a good cancer screening tool, but if it does go up, then you say, oh, there's something there, something we should do. So number one, omega-3 oils. Get a lot of omega-3 oils. That really makes a big difference. Number two, selenium. Take a selenium supplement. That's really important for conversion of the testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. Another thing to consider is having like people who ride bikes long distances, for example, actually put pressure on the prostate, and that can raise their PSA. And so then after a few weeks, you just retest it. Just retest it. And if it's back down, to 2 or 3, then you don't worry about it at all, because if it's cancer, it never goes down. But if it's still going up, then it might be worth finding out what's going on in the prostate. So in that case, you would start doing a test like an MRI scan or ultrasound to look at the prostate.
Someone had asked, how do you check your magnesium? How do you know your levels?
Well, I test. I test a lot of people for magnesium, and it's pretty rare for me to find people low in magnesium. But so extra magnesium can still be helpful, even if you have enough. You take the extra magnesium; it has a relaxing effect on the muscles, and people sleep better with it, even though they technically have enough. If you were to do their blood tests, and I've done this, people's blood tests, find out where they are and say you're normal, and they say, well, I'm still taking magnesium because it helps me sleep at night.
Yeah.
Or it helps me have a bowel movement. There are other things too.
We do have a good magnesium product. It is a spray magnesium that you can get at bartonnutrition.com. Use code webinar25. You'll save 25% over there, and we'll post a link for that. But really good topical magnesium that I really like. And if you're someone who needs some help, going to the bathroom, there's a lot of other ones too that, you ingest that I think work for that very well. Let's see, lots of good questions coming in. If you want to keep those coming into the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Those of you on YouTube, feel free to post those in the chat. We'll do our best to answer those. Richard had gotten a continuous glucose monitor from his doctor. It seems that his blood sugar goes up from 110 to 150 when I get hungry just before eating. Then the reading then drops, and about an hour later, it goes back up to 150 to 160 and then goes back down. Is that normal?
Yeah, you have to look. The CGM is not blood glucose. It's not the same thing. It's measuring interstitial fluid. So the blood goes through capillaries, and some of the fluid goes out in around the cells. And so there's a lot of variables there in the interstitial fluid as opposed to what's in the blood. So as the fluid goes out around the cells are taking up glucose, and sometimes are taking it up when they're using it more, they'll take it up faster. And so the interstitial fluid will be relatively depleted. So it can go up and down faster than the blood. And it tends to be a little lower, 10 to 20% lower than it is in the blood. Yeah, that's actually a normal thing. So it's not something to worry about. The purpose for the CGM is to tell you what things that you do to improve your blood sugar to make it better. So if you have a CGM and you eat something and your blood sugar shoots up to 150 and you go, oh my gosh, what happened? What did I eat? And you look back and you wouldn't have thought that a high protein meal could cause your blood sugar to go up. And then you find out that they put barbecue sauce on the meat, which has a whole bunch of high fructose corn syrup. And you didn't realize that. Oh, the sauce, of course. So then the CGM gives you ideas of, oh, what do I have to avoid? Some people are like, well, berries are perfectly natural. I should be able to eat as much as I want of those. Well, yeah, they're natural, but you got to think they also have sugar in them. And so if you're eating berries and your blood sugar is shooting up, then yeah, that's something that you have to avoid. So that's where the CGM is useful. It doesn't have to be. Don't consider it as this is the number, because it's not. They're wrong.
All right. Connie said, what do you do for swollen legs and feet when none of the water pills from my doctor seem to work? Could it be maybe lymphatic system clogged? Doctor says it's not coming from my heart. Desperate to know what to do.
Okay. So number one, find out why. So the purpose for diuretics, those medications that are supposed to take away the swelling, is to make you dehydrated. So if you're taking a diuretic and then because you're dehydrated, you're getting thirsty, you're drinking more water. So you were drinking a half a gallon a day, and then you take a diuretic, and now you're drinking a gallon a day, and you're peeing out twice as much, of course. So because it's making you urinate more, right? That's what the medications do. But that's not going to change what's collecting in your lower extremities, for example. So sometimes we can overcome the diuretic by just drinking too much. That's a possibility. So instead of the diuretic, one thing you can do is to have fluid restriction, to just drink less so that you're relatively dehydrated, so that that fluid comes back into the arteries. So you're not collecting excess fluid, and there's no excess because you're dehydrated. And that's not a really healthy thing anyway, whether you're taking a medication or on a or drinking less to be dehydrated. Dehydration is still an issue either way. So, what's a better way to do it? Well, I have had people who were like, oh, like filled with water, and the diuretics weren't working anymore. And fasting really gets rid of water so well. A lot of people, when they start fasting, they get dizziness and lightheadedness, and they have to sit down and lay down. And I've always told them that it's uh, their sugar, their glucose level dropping too low. But there's another issue there that's often the case, and it's not the glucose. It's because their electrolytes are changing, and the fluid is changing in their body. So that while they're fasting, even though they're drinking water, they're because of the change in electrolytes, their fluid will come out of their tissues. It's part of the autophagy. And so I had one guy who was so swollen. He had 80 gallons. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. He had 10 gallons of water in his body, excess water. So he was just like swollen up all over the place. And I told him, just don't eat or drink anything. And in 2 weeks, he lost 100 pounds, and he walked out of a nursing home because he was now able to walk. So sometimes you have to fast for a while to get that fluid to get back into your system and it's back into circulation.
Wow.
So would that be the main reason why her legs are swollen? If it's not heart related, is water retention? Would there be any other reasons her legs are swollen?
Yeah, kidney problems, heart problems, liver problems, or venous system problems. So yeah, thank you, Cheryl. There are other reasons for you to be collecting water, and knowing which it is can be really helpful.
All right. Maurice said I read that chromium and cinnamon would be better replacement for metformin, but a double-blind study says that this chromium treatment has no effect in patients with poorly controlled insulin-treated type 2 diabetes in an obese Western population. What good is it to use that? Wouldn't magnesium and cinnamon be better?
Um, I would opt for none of the above. Okay, so you need chromium to use sugar. So when they do a study, if they take a whole bunch of people who are not deficient in chromium and gives them chromium and say, see, chromium doesn't do anything, that's not a useful study because we already knew that they were not deficient in chromium. If you took instead 100 people that were deficient in chromium and had diabetes and gave them chromium, a percentage of them will be completely cured by just giving them chromium. So the issue in that is not that chromium works or chromium doesn't work. The issue is you need chromium. And chromium is, most people have enough, but it's a fairly common deficiency. So it may be useful to take it. But that's not the issue with poorly controlled type 2 diabetes. Poorly controlled type 2 diabetes needs phase 1 of the program. So that's what you want to do. You want to get the book, start with page 1, go through each page, fill out all the forms, and do phase 1 of the program. Because really what you need to do is deplete your body of glycogen. That's what needs to be done. So just taking a supplement, I don't care if it's cinnamon or whatever, none of that is going to be of any use if all of your cells are filled up to the brim with sugar.
Right.
And Maurice, if you don't have that book, I see Leslie just posted Barton webinar, or you could write us at support@bartonpublishing.com and we'll help you get one of those.
Awesome. All right. Sorry, I was trying to type that on YouTube as well. Okay, done with that one. Okay, Genevieve said, what have you heard about lamotrigine 25 milligram tablets? Have there been any studies on it? What are the side effects? Uh, I am concerned about a family member who's been prescribed this med. She's been assigned one tablet twice a day for 1 week, then two tablets twice a day for 1 week, and then three tablets twice a day for 1 week, and then four. And what are your thoughts?
Well, lamotrigine is an antidepressant. It's often used in bipolar disorder. It's I don't like it. Personally, I don't prescribe it. It's not something I would prescribe. Some people may find some benefit from it, but you have to consider what those medications are doing. So I have a thought. I have a thought on that. What you have a family member who's been prescribed this medication, and it may help and it may not. But either way, there's a book that you can recommend. It's Dr. Christopher Palmer is the author, and it's called Brain Energy. So Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer. He's a psychiatrist who has been well versed in all of these medications and how they affect the brain, and that's the research that he does. And he will describe how the energy systems of the brain work to prevent these mental illnesses, whether it's depression or bipolar disorder, and what you can do about it. So it's not just a book of interest for scientists. It actually has instructions on what could be done.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
I'll share the link to that too. I did find that book, so I'll share that link here in the chat. And then Genevieve had also said, are there any natural supplements for possible seizures?
Yeah, find out why you have seizures. If somebody has seizures because of a parasite in the brain, that's a very different thing from someone who has seizures from brain damage, for example, or metabolic problems. So each one of those are very different. So find out why the seizures are there. That's the first thing to do, and then deal with the reason why.
Okay. Anonymous said, are there any supplements to balance hypothyroidism so I do not have to depend on a prescription or compounding pharmacy?
There might be. Um, so this is one of those things. Find out why your thyroid is low. There's a lot of different reasons. If you have high stress and your cortisol levels are elevated, they will block you from making the active thyroid hormone T3. So you may make enough T4, but not enough T3. So how do you know? Well, you do a test, and you test free T4, free T3, and TSH. And if your T4 is normal, but your T3 is low, then that tells you that there's a block there, and that could be an adrenal problem and have nothing to do with the thyroid problem. Your thyroid could be perfectly normal, making enough T4, and everything's good. So you may not need anything for the thyroid. You may need to deal with the adrenals. Other reasons, common things, iodine is a common deficiency. And people who don't have sufficient levels of iodine do get low thyroid, and they usually get a goiter or thyroid nodules growing in their thyroid. Another one is selenium. Selenium isn't found in our soils, and it's a common deficiency in the United States. So unless you're eating Brazil nuts on a regular basis, it's really hard to get enough selenium. Since that's a common deficiency, that's something that's necessary for the enzyme thyroid peroxidase. So that's an important one too, so that you can make thyroid properly. So yes, there are some supplements that might work, but finding out what the problem is would be the next step.
Cynthia was diagnosed with hypoglycemia a long time ago. Why do I get so tired after I eat lunch? And what can I do to help that? Right now, I just drink coffee after lunch.
Okay. So if you're diagnosed with hypoglycemia, that means you've tested your blood sugar and your blood sugar drops low after lunch. And if that's the case, then yes, there are things you can do. So the first thing you want to do is train your body to burn fat. So if you burn fat, when people have a normal metabolism and their blood sugar's dropping low, they immediately switch to fat burning and their energy stays the same, and they do not have a drop in energy at all. However, if you have insulin resistance of any kind, then as your blood sugar's dropping low, you have insulin resistance, so you still have high insulin that blocks you from using fat. So now you can't switch to fat burning. So your energy just plummets down into the tanks. So if you train your body to burn fat so that you don't have insulin resistance, then you're humming along. You eat, and your blood sugar goes up, your insulin goes up, and then it starts dropping low blood sugar, and you just switch to fat burning, and boom, you're off, and no problems. So that's also a sign of insulin resistance. So first thing to do is get the diabetes solution kit and start on phase 1. And that's a training system, systematically train your body to burn fat for energy.
Awesome. All right. Allison said, thank you. My husband has been doing 20-mile bike rides. So should he not bike for several days before another blood test is and if so, how many days? I think we were talking about uh, is it PSA? No, I can't remember what the
Yeah.
testing
Oh,
was.
PSA.
Yeah.
Oh, his PSA went up. Yeah. How many days? Gosh, I don't know. I'll have to look that one up. Yeah. How long does the PSA stay high if you're doing 20-mile bike rides? I don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Connie said, just heard you talk about supplements that give a calming effect. So my question is, why would these supplements help with restless leg syndrome? Oh, would they help? And how many milligrams do you take of magnesium and selenium?
Okay. Very interesting. So let's start with the magnesium and selenium. Magnesium is around 400 milligrams at night before bed. Selenium is about 200 micrograms would be an adequate dose of selenium. Okay, so now let's look at restless leg syndrome, which isn't really anxiety. Restless legs is a low level of dopamine. It's a lack of dopamine in the brain, so that there's the lack of relaxation or control, and it's a feeling of I just have to move. I can't hold still, and it's commonly seen in people. If you've ever seen anyone on methamphetamines, they can't hold still. You talk to them, you tell them, okay, hold still, and then they hold still, and they're kind of hanging in there, and all of a sudden they just have to move, and they start squirming, and you see all that squirming happening, and it's all voluntary. And you ask them, why do you move like that? It's because I have to. And that's restless leg. It's a lack of dopamine in the system. So the neurotransmitters are out of balance. So the first thing, if you have RLS, don't just treat it with dopamine. Some people do that, and you can take there's herbs like velvet bean extract that increase the dopamine. They contain dopamine, and they may help for a while, but that doesn't address the cause of why it's happening. Because very often the lack of dopamine is because of, in the substantia nigra, the brain isn't producing enough dopamine in those areas that are supposed to produce dopamine because of toxicity. And so getting rid of those toxins is going to be more important than treating that symptom. Because if you don't get rid of the toxins, then you end up with things like Parkinson's disease and movement disorders. So it's so much better to fix the problem, the toxicity.
Yeah, right. Doctors say after testing that I do not have vertigo. However, I do have constant dizziness, so I've been taking prescribed beta histine. Is there something I can take naturally?
Constant dizziness. Um, See, again, there's so many possibilities. You ask the question why.
Yeah.
Why is the dizziness there? What kind of dizziness is it? There's dizziness that we call vertigo, which is usually from the inner ear, the vestibular system, that you feel like the room's spinning around. Then there's the dizziness that's lightheadedness, and that's from a lack of blood pressure, where your pressure can't get up. And that's an autonomic nervous system dysfunction. Or there's dizziness from low blood sugar, which usually causes sweating and palpitations and other things too. That's a different issue. That's from high insulin. So I think the key is with dizziness to ask the question why. Why am I dizzy? What's causing it? Is it a central nervous system, autonomic nervous system, or is it peripheral in the ears? Where's the problem? And fix the problem. That way you don't have to deal with the symptom.
All right. Like Kevin said, I'm a little confused to better understand the usage of glucose numbers. My understanding is if I eat, my glucose reading would normally go up. And depending upon the amount of food eaten, it could go up to 150 to 160. However, after waiting 2 to 3 hours, my blood sugar is back down to 117 to 123. As I'm not taking any diabetic medication, I believe my body and metabolism is normally processing my food and blood sugar levels. And if I do fast, my numbers do go down to 78 to 84. So is this considered to be a diabetic? I think this diabetic classification is being used by the medical community to keep their patients in their waiting rooms and gainfully employed. Am I wrong?
No, actually, that's very perceptive of you. That's exactly right. Is that you have a metabolism, and it's working to some extent, but we know it's impaired because after eating, your glucose does go up to 150, 160. So it's getting high. So that's telling us that your insulin resistance, that you have some insulin resistance, so your metabolism is impaired somewhat. But after a while, it comes down to normal, like it should, but you're still resistant to insulin, but it still works somewhat. And if you fast, it comes down to normal. And so that's an indication that yes, your system is working, but it's impaired. So the next step would be to use up all the glucose in your cells. And that usually takes a couple of days of fasting. Get the book, the Diabetes Solution Kit, and start from the beginning and go through the whole thing, and until when you check your blood sugar after a meal, it doesn't go above 120. It usually stays like below 110. And morning fasting, your number should be between 70 and 90. And if that's where it is and it never goes up above 120, then that you've fixed the problem. That's the fix.
Okay. All right. Genevieve said a recent test showed a scar in the brain. The doc said it looks like it's from an old injury. He's going to perform another test and then in 6 months, an MRI to make sure there isn't a tumor developing in the brain.
I think that was in reference to taking lamotrigine, that one.
Okay. Yeah. Scar tissue can cause seizures.
Okay.
Or, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if that's the case, yeah, finding out what that is really important, because if that's like a cancer growing or something like that, then causing seizures, then yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of you saying we need to get to the root of these issues to figure out the truth and to know
Exactly.
how to best take care of things. Okay, Anonymous said I'm pre-diabetic. My doctor prescribed metformin. However, I've read a lot of negative information about metformin. What's your opinion on the use of it?
Well, if you get the Diabetes Solution Kit, get the book. You start with phase one, and you just go through that and do it. It's going to work so much better than metformin. So yeah, as I did more research, at first I was like, well, metformin's okay. You can take it. But as I did more research on it, I find, you know what, it does prevent you from building muscle, so it does not make you better. It actually can make you worse in the long run, because not being able to build muscle, you're going to get weaker and weaker, and you're going to not use sugar as well. And so your glucose actually gets worse in the long run. So I would avoid metformin. I think it's a good idea. Berberine doesn't have that effect. And it has a similar benefit of metformin in causing your body to use fat for energy. So you could take something like berberine, but still, that's not the solution. The solution is the Diabetes Solution Kit.
Love it. Okay. Marcia said, is intermittent fasting good for someone with type 2, an early stage for cirrhosis? Person was told by a dietitian to have a snack about 2 hours before bedtime. He's on metformin.
I know they say that. Okay. So, um, so far, there is nothing better for any of these problems than fasting. There really nothing. There's no medications that are better. Eating food before you go to bed. There is a theory that actually doesn't work, and that is that you don't want to get hypoglycemia while you're sleeping at night.
Mm.
So you better eat something before bed. When actually the best thing you could do is to get hypoglycemia. And so everybody's afraid of that because of insulin injections. People who get insulin injections get so hypoglycemic, they're below 30 and they're getting seizures from it. And they used to actually do that on purpose for people who were severely depressed. They would give them insulin to make them hypoglycemic until they had seizures. And that was supposed to cure their depression. So because of that, people are worried about it. But if you have type 2, you're not going to get hypoglycemic like that. You're not injecting insulin. So that's not even a worry. So the best thing you can do is phase one of the program. But since you asked about fasting, fasting is the single best thing you could do.
Bet that's not the first time many of you have heard that around here.
Right.
Talk about fasting a lot.
I just wrote another article about animals fasting. You know, everybody says, "Oh, fasting is really horrible for you," and it turns out that in the wild, like fasting for 6 months is nothing. Like a lot of animals do that. Whales do it, and birds, and
Bear.
chipmunks and bears. Yeah, they're all fasting for like 6 months at a time. Like literally, no food at all. Amazing.
I wanted to jump in because Martha in the comment or the chat says, and what do you think about Monjaro and other such drugs? Curious
Ah.
about that.
Okay, good question. Okay, so these are glucagon-like polypeptides, GLP-1, and what they do is they cause the body to make more insulin, and if you make more insulin, then your blood sugar goes down. But at the same time, they cause gastroparesis. They stop your stomach from moving. So things don't empty out very well out of your stomach. So you just don't get hungry as quickly. And so you don't eat as much. So what's really interesting is everything that we have for weight loss, no matter what it is, if you remember fen-phen, phentermine, fenfluramine, phentermine combination, or amphetamines, or whatever, ionamine, all those things for weight loss, they all have. Even surgery, all of them have only one thing in common: people eat less. Period. I had a woman who was. She came to me for her pre-op surgery to have her stomach stapled. And she said, "So what did they do?" I'm like, "The surgeon didn't explain that." No, they didn't say anything. So I explained. So here's what they do. They make your stomach about 50 cc's, half a cup, and that's all you can eat. If you try to eat more, you're going to vomit. So you can't eat more. So that's all you can eat is a half a cup at a time. And that's how you lose weight. You just eat less. So I didn't see her for a long time, like 6 months or 8 months later, she came in and she was thin. And I'm like, I didn't recognize her, of course. I recognized the name, I didn't recognize her. And I said, "What happened?" "Well, your surgery was successful, right?" And she said, "I canceled the surgery." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I went home and I thought, why go through this horrible surgery when all I have to do is eat 50 cc's at a meal?" So that's what I did. I measured a half a cup for every meal. That's what I was going to have to do anyway. So I measured a half a cup at every meal and I just ate less and I lost 100 pounds. And so it's like, wow, that was amazing. You know, in less than a year, she lost 100 pounds. So that's what every single thing does, is just you eat less. So what side effect do you want? What medication do you want? Do you want an amphetamine that wires you and makes you not hungry so you eat less, but then it messes up your brain? Or do you want a stomach stapling procedure that you eat less and messes up your digestive system so you can't absorb nutrients properly? Or do you want Mounjaro injections that causes gastroparesis and increases your insulin so that your blood sugar goes down and you eat less? But in the long run, you're getting more insulin resistant. So it's not a solution to the problem. So none of those are good solutions, as we know. Even the people that have surgery 10 years later, most of them have gained it all back. So because they stretch out their stomachs, right? They just stomachs stretch. And so they start with 50 cc's and they just gradually get bigger and bigger. So the answer is really, instead of injections, instead of surgery, instead of pills, eat less. That's really what it comes down to.
One last question. Elaine asks, Does your A1C go down by eating less?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The A1C is the average blood sugar. So that's the roughly 3 months of what your glucose is. And so if you're eating less, then you're going to be using up the glucose in your cells, and your blood sugar is going to be lower, so your A1C will go down.
All right. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders. We appreciate
Welcome.
you. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
After today, I feel like we can't overcomplicate things sometimes.
I know.
Simple thing, eat less and fast. Like solve a lot of the world problems.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. We'll